Evening, Clarets. Welcome to another The Dust Has Settled. I think I like the title. It's grown on me. Let me know what you think, if I should change it. I feel like it's an appropriate name for the distance and the amount of time that I allow things to breathe after a game or a major announcement, for example. So since the last one, there's been quite a lot going on. We obviously had the Alan Pace toddler tantrum comments, which went down like a sack of spuds. Safe to say, we were all expecting an apology from Alan after labelling us 3-year-olds, basically. But no, we got a statement from him that basically just doubled down what he said. He just said, no, yep, that's what I said. I said you're all 3-year-olds and you're having a tantrum and whatever. And yeah, and it sort of came across a little bit arrogant. Also came across a little bit sort of not AI, but a little bit old generic wording and a bit of nonsense in there. And he spoke about talking that he's one of us and he's sort of waiting for change, and it's like, hold on a minute, you're the chairman, you be the change. So that's sort of all not been swept under the rug. It's sort of been just kicked down they've sort of been kicked down the lane a little bit till later on, and I imagine it'll be one of them. It'll be a stick that Burnley fans will probably beat him with for quite some time, really, until things start to improve. So yeah, that didn't go well. And then what do we have after that? Oh, the Mansfield game, the FA Cup disaster. The one thing we were looking forward to as a Burnley fan, the one thing we could have all hung our hats on, we could have got a little bit excited, probably even a little bit carried away for a little cup run. But no, Senior Scott Parker does what Senior Scott Parker does well this season and absolutely cocks it up. Now, I wasn't sort of overly confident going into the game. I expected us to win. I didn't expect us to win by a great deal. I thought it would have been a 2-1, 1-0, 1-1 right up to the last, late stage of the game, and we'd get the win. The quality and the levels would show through. But boy, was I wrong. Just from the moment the team news came out, I just had a terrible feeling about that day. He made so many changes. He brings in players that he's not willing to give a run out in the Premier League, but yet, he, in a time when he needs a win, he then looks to these players to give them that win. He brings in Hartman, a Hartman that clearly does not want to be here. If there's ever a suite of evidence of a man that does not want to play at a football club, that game is there for all to see. He was just not interested in the game. He was passive. He was disinterested. He lacked sort of any real endeavour and effort. And on the flip side, can you blame him for whatever's happened? We can only speculate. I've spoken about this on an article I've done, and it's sort of these constant news stories are all silent. The silence will breed suspicion, and the unknown will then lead to sort of fans to make up their own stories about what's going on. And that's the case with Hartman. We don't know what's going on. We can only assume that him and Parker have had a falling out and it's all gone to pot and he's fallen out of favour. That's all that I can see. And from the evidence I've seen with my own eyes, when he was on that pitch, that's what it looks like to me. It looks like he's thrown the toys out. He's not interested. Manager's not going to play him, and he's put in a pretty dire performance. He wasn't the only one. There was quite a few that game. I thought Ashley Barnes looked really. I can't say too much about Barnsley because he's a club legend, but his time's done. It's done. Let's not put him in any positions that make it, that sort of put a stain on these last few months we've got of Barnsley at the club. So he just looked off it. He couldn't really make a difference to a Mansfield back line. I did find it was quite peculiar that Brozier was dropped for footballing reasons the previous week and then was completely missing from the Mansfield game. So makes me think, what's going on there? We are getting into that sort of stage of the season now where our moves haven't happened, or maybe agents were talking to players and they were told that they might get a move. They haven't got a move. Now they're a bit upset, blah, blah, blah. So who knows what's going on? We're getting this constant stream of PR that everything's hunky-dory in the dressing room. We don't know that. But back to the game, I thought Esteve and Ekdal looked all at sea. Just lacked any real impetus on the game, and they were sort of getting bullied by a League One opposition. Now, the pattern of the game started off, we were dominant is the wrong word, but we were dominant. That's the only word I can think of, but we were just not clinical in our chances whatsoever. We should have had that game done and dusted pretty sharpish. And that pretty much, that first sort of 35 minutes of that game summed up our entire season. Like, so many chances, so many opportunities to attack, so many opportunities to break teams down, and we just didn't do it. We for whatever reason, whether we turned back or we weren't clinical enough or we missed the chance. And speaking of missed chances, Loom Chowner had an absolute stinker. He's just become a really baffling signing to me. He's got all the physical attributes. You look at him and you think, yeah, he's an athlete, he's a footballer, but then he plays the game and you just sort of think, what have you got to bring to the team? And I'm sorry, if you come with a £15 million price tag from Lazio, then I would expect you to have some impact against the League One team, and he just didn't provide that. So that was an odd one, but Brun Larson was an odd one. Anyway, I can't be rattling through the worst one by a country mile. Like I say, I'm going to hold my hands up on video now. Like I fell in love with Florentino when he came in. I thought, what an unbelievable signing! All the makings to be a truly top level defensive midfielder, but he has just been on the decline since October. Like, every performance has gradually got worse and worse and worse, and then he really bottomed out against Mansfield. Like, the lad could not do anything right. He couldn't win the ball back, he couldn't retain the ball, he couldn't give the ball to someone else, he couldn't get in the game. He was, every time he got the ball, he turned backwards. He was being out-muscled by League One midfielders. Now, like I say, I took a bit of flack. I said he was one of the best players I've seen in the Burnley shirt for them brief sort of few weeks where he came in and he was just absolutely tearing it apart in midfield, cutting everything out. It was then just giving the little short balls to Cullen and breaking out the lines, and he just had all the attributes to be a really top level defensive midfielder. And for whatever reason, whether it's a coaching thing, a confidence thing, a fitness thing, I have no idea, but the drop off from the drop-off of Florentino Luis has to be studied, if I'm being truthfully honest with you. But yeah, he threw in a generational stinker. Now, I am bothered about the individual performances, but my biggest gripe with the Mansfield game was we don't play another game for like an entire week. We literally play 7 days later at Chelsea away. And then I think soon after that, we've got an international break. And also the season's over. There's nothing to play for. Like, I know Scott Parker, another club, and other players won't come out and say that. I know they're going to say the fight till the end, but we all know that the season's over. So he can turn up to that game with a full-strength team. Bearing in mind we'd just beaten Crystal Palace. We could come to this game with a full-strength team and everyone around us goes, he wants to have a go in this cup. We can all see that he wants to have a go. He's put his full strength team out. There was no reason to rest players like we did, because, to be honest with you, after that Palace game, we looked like we came out of it okay. Like, I didn't think we had many injuries. We didn't look that leggy. Like, we looked tired at that stage of the season, but we looked fine in the game. But to start that game against Mansfield, I just thought it was another poor judgment on Scott Parker. That's been my gripes. This video is not going to be another Scott Parker bashing session. It's just not going to be that. But it's just another little thing to pile on top. I've always said it's the little things that he does. It's the little things that compile and they become a big thing. Like, he didn't need to make that many changes. Like, he just did not need to do it. We know we're not going to go to Stamford Bridge and get a win. Like, we're not going to do that. So, you know what? Maybe make 2 changes. Yeah, do your Dubravka and maybe do Ugachukwu just to keep his legs in midfield, but then keep the rest going. Keep the rest of the team going. Keep Kyle Walker going, ticking over. You're not telling me that he's not still got the legs to keep up with League One League One defenders, or put a shift in and like keep your back line, keep your continuity, keep Worrell. Like, you know, maybe you can look at maybe only doing half for Worrell just because he's that age of his career, but. You know, why not keep a bit of continuity? Why not keep a bit of confidence distilled in the team? And then what we're having to do is bring players on to try and win a game, but then they're looking like they're not interested. You know, Edwards don't want to come on and be in that league. You're playing against that League One team, playing against Mansfield, and you don't want to have to come and win a game. And, you know, it just stunk again. He just got the basic decision wrong again. And, you know, I'm still astonished that there isn't a press release now that he's been sacked. I'm still astonished by that. I'm firmly in the camp that I do no longer want him, and I'm firmly in the camp that I know he probably won't. Well, it's not looking like he's going to go, but, you know, I'm hoping that the board can prove me wrong on this and do the right thing, and just let's start building for next season. Let's start, you know, looking at options for next season, who we can bring in, and can we rebuild the you know, the feeling and the vibe. And, you know, if they're telling us that they're still fighting for Scott, then I want to see it. Like, I'm not seeing it. You know, I'm not seeing what Scott and the players are telling us. You know, they're telling us that the dressing room's fine, that there's good vibes, they're all fighting, but I ain't seeing that. You know, that Palace game was an okay defensive performance. You know, I've seen us do that at 0-0 and go on to lose the game. We've defended well for most parts, then just give silly goals away. But them 7 minutes, you know, Palace capitulated. We took advantage for the first time with this season. We've actually took advantage of a bad defence in front of us. So I can't really put too much hope on that performance. And I know, going off the form of the season, we're probably going to have to wait another 100 days to see a win. But judging by the last sort of time it took to get a win, so, you know, we should start looking at next season, and we should start looking now at what players we can bring in to start pushing on, you know, to either get them out into the shop window, to start looking at moving on. You know, we're going to be going into another season of another rebuild, regardless whether Parker's here or not. We're going to have to do another rebuild, because there's going to be players that are going to want out. You know, we're going to be losing probably Walker, definitely Hartman. You know, we're probably going to be losing Esteve because he's a sellable asset. He boosts that, you know, that profit line up. You know, we're going to be losing Ugachukwu. That's the reality of it. He's going to get Premier League, you know, taste for the Premier League football, and he's going to want to keep in that. You know, like he did. He left Southampton to come to us. He'll probably leave us to go somewhere else. Same with Tuanzebe. He will leave. He left Ipswich and came to us, and so he'll do the same again. Edwards, you know, I don't blame him if he moves, because he's not Championship. He's much better than that if he can just sort out sort of the tracking back. But then again, if he plays in a better team, he probably can get away with being a bit more of a creative player. I think we have to move on Foster. The experiment is over. It's done. We should have moved him on in the summer. We definitely should have moved him on in January. He's not good enough. Brozier is another one of them. Do I trust him to want to stay and fight over the summer? No, I don't trust him to. I think he'll want out. I think he views himself higher than what he is now. If he came to the Championship, could he bring something to the table? Yeah, I think he could. But it's an unknown, because he's never played at that level. So we don't know. We don't know what he's going to be like at that level. You know, we're probably not going to get Cullen back until, you know, late on in August, if not a bit further, you know, with his injury. And we're going to have to, you know, Florentino almost certainly isn't going to be a Burnley player next season. You know, we've got major rebuilding problems to sort out. And, you know, do I trust Scott Parker to do that? No. Do I trust the board to do that? No, definitely not. But we're going to have to do it. But now the board have got themselves tied up in knots with Scott Parker's contract. So he's got 2 options now. He's only got, you see out the end of his year of his contract and gets us a promotion, say, and then that gets rewarded with an extension. I don't think the fans are going to want that, even if he gets us promoted again. You know, can the club reward Scott Parker with a contract extension now? No, because he's provided one of Burnley's worst seasons in terms of the eye test. It's dreadful to watch, you know. There's a bit of discourse going on that, you know, he's gained more points at this stage than Vincent Kompany, but my gripe with that is Vincent Kompany, like, it looked like there was an idea, there was an identity, there was an element of fun, there was an entertainment, you know, and Scott doesn't have that. And off the pitch, you know, Kompany was Vincent Kompany. He's one of the best, you know, he was just a big name, and he spoke like one of us. He spoke about the town like he cared, he understood it, he got the working class vibe, and to me, Scott doesn't, and that's where the endearment's gone this season, I think. So, you know, like I say, I wrote an article on Twitter, and it's gone a few other places. I think it's got quite a lot of traction, to be fair, and I'm quite happy with how it's gone down. A lot of people tend to agree, and it was all about sort of a divide and where it's all gone wrong. And I spoke about this divide between fans and board and players, and it's getting bigger, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's going to end in a really, I think, negative place pretty soon, one way or another, whether that's where, you know, whether the board give up this project and try and look to move it on, or the fans give up completely and they're just not buying into what the club are doing. And that's not a nice place to be in. And it's filtered now into the games, you know, that again, there was only 8,000 on at the ground on Saturday, but there were very audible boos over about 2,000 Mansfield fans. You know, it was very audible. So again, it's just going to keep getting more and more toxic the longer this goes on. Like, the only way this is going to get better is if we are putting in a shift and we're getting, you know, good points, not scraping dodgy points, but getting good points on the board, nicking wins here and there. But is Scott going to deliver that? No, I don't think he is. I think he knows his race is run. He himself comes out and he sort of says this same old spiel about how we're fighting and, you know, we're doing this whole we're all men thing and we're all this, that and the other, and it's worn thin on a lot of people now. And I think the feeling of frustration has gone. It's sort of faded into anger and despair a little bit with the season, and I think ultimately I don't think there's a way back, really. It is toxic. I was asked on Twitter about them bringing a chap called Bailey wants to bring like a young junior team up, you know, because he says he always had a good atmosphere. But, you know, I would say it's not up to the fans it's not the fans' fault. It's a toxic atmosphere, if you get me. It's the reaction to what they're seeing on the pitch. You know, if we're dead and buried, like we know we are, but yet we'll go, if we go 1-2-0 up, like you see how good the fans turn back around and get behind the team. But if they're watching something and it's failing the eye test really badly, the fans aren't stupid. They know what they're seeing, and they know when a product's bad, and what we're getting is bad. So yeah, it is getting toxic, and it's ramping up week on week because more and more fans are sort of seeing what's going on, and they're understanding that it's gone to shit, basically. But the only people that can change that, you know, is the players and the management. Like, they've got to give us something to cheer for. Like, we can't just go into the turf and just be all happy clappy all the time and go, yeah, it's okay, we've lost 5-0 again, but that's all right. Or, oh yeah, that's 15 tries without a win. It's not going to happen. You know, fans aren't stupid enough. Like, you know, let's use the analogy. You know, Alan keeps hinting that, you know, the ownership and the club want to see us as customers. They keep hinting at this. So, right, let's use that analogy then. Let's pretend we're all customers. If the product you was paying for lacked quality, lacked value for money, lacked a, prestige about it, or lacked, you know, if it lacked what you think you thought you were buying, you know, if you were buying, you know, 12 eggs, but looked inside it and there was, you know, a load of onions, you'd be disappointed. you wouldn't have got what you've paid for. And we were promised at the start of all this that we would always have teams that we can be proud of, and that there would be an identity, and it would follow along with the project. And there just isn't that. And when, as a customer, if that's the way they want to look at us, we ain't getting our money's worth. So if Alan is a businessman that he says he is, which I believe he is, because he's made a lot of money, a lot more than I ever will, he needs to make corrective decisions to make sure that his product that he's selling to his customers is worthy of the price that they're asking us to pay for. And if we're paying for it and not getting what we're paying for, it's in our fair right to come back and go, hold on a minute, that's not what we're paying for. That's not what we've signed up for. This is not what you promised us as a product. And whether that means he has to change the manager, or he has to get a director of football in to really instill a clear philosophy of football into the football club, and we have a clear, distinct identity, and it doesn't change no matter what manager comes in, what coach or whatever you want to label, or it's a full overhaul of sort of recruitment. It is a broad change. They're gonna have to. They've chopped and changed and bounced through quite a lot of stuff now. So yeah, look, I'm bereft of energy with this season. I'm sort of almost ready to knock it on head. Really, I'm thankfully I'm busy against the Brentford game, so I'm not going to actually watch that one. I'm going out with mates all day in Blackpool, so that'll be a good laugh. So I'm going to miss that game, but my next game is definitely be Everton away, because I'm excited to see the new stadium, and obviously, maybe we can do. Maybe you go with that hope, don't you? Ultimately, you're a football fan. You go with that. Maybe we can. I think Saturday will be a write-off against Chelsea. They just seem to be just hitting the strides. I'd be surprised if we picked up anything Saturday, if I'm being honest with you. So we can just write it off and use the international break, and maybe that becomes a good break to, maybe look at changing the manager. But who knows? Who knows what Alan Pace is thinking, because they don't communicate. And that's a big gripe. I'm probably going to come across, I'm going to do another one of these videos later on in the week, possibly over the weekend, depending on how the result goes and any shenanigans. But we're lacking communication from the club, and we're not being told what's going on. I'm not to say he has to put his cards on the table all the time, but if you're going to back him, Alan Pace still hasn't publicly backed Scott Parker yet. Like, categorically, black and white, I back Scott Parker till the cows come home. He still hasn't done that. So there is always that, question of uncertainty around the board of, like, do you know what you're doing? Because we're all seeing what Scott Parker's doing to the team, and we're seeing what the players are doing, and it ain't good enough. So yeah, if you've watched this far, you've done very well. You're a trooper, and I appreciate you. I really do. This is the longest video I've done, really. Well, no, not really. It is. So I appreciate, I'm getting a lot of traction on the articles I'm doing. So I'll try and get another one of them out in the next week. I'll keep bringing the videos. But genuinely, please give us your comments on the video. Give us a like on this video, because that really helps. And let me know what I can do to make these videos better. I don't want this all to be a big production and lots of graphics. I just want to keep it simple and raw, and just honest, one-to-one, almost like a one-to-one chats and event almost from me. So please do give us your comments and feedback and thoughts about what I can do to make these videos a bit better. But yeah, once again, I'll thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Up the Clarets.